And we're live, and we've been having way too many laughs.
We have always, always,
Always.
always, always. I think just interesting events. I was talking to Brooke about a conversation. I was driving from Raleigh to Asheville. It's like a 3 hour drive. And usually, what I used to do when my mom was alive, I would just call her and we would have a 3 hour long conversation. But
Because
this
we all know we
time,
can have that with mom.
we can have like a random conversation. Who knows what's happening?
And she'd be thrilled to hear from you. That's the best part about mom.
Yeah, like especially in India, the time zones are perfect. I'm like, it's time. You don't have anything else to do. Just talk to me. But since she's passed away, probably one of my friend got stuck with me. One of my wife's friend got stuck with me for 3.5 hours. So we started talking, and one thing came up, and it kept coming up, and that's really what I think the conversation I want to take this week is more around this feeling that life's too hard, or I have had a hard time. And this is not a reflection on her. I think it's a reflection on everyone that I'm talking to around my age group now. Like, I've had a hard life, right? It doesn't matter who they are, and I'm not saying they're lying. The conversation though is that yes, everyone has a right to say they have a hard life because they probably did. But then how do you move forward? If you're stuck in the past of my life's hard, your future is going to be even harder. But then how do you move forward? That's really what I thought we'll have a conversation. And then at the flip side, I spoke to a 14-year-old whose eyes are wide-eyed open, like completely, he can do anything and he can accomplish anything. And for him, the life's not tiring, right? But I'm pretty sure these examples are extreme examples. People are somewhere in between that. I really thought this probably would be a good time because as we're ending half year now, and we're June 27th today. So we're almost towards the end of the year. Halfway is gone. It's a good reflection point that how
It
this year
is.
has been, what your thought process has been, how have you been looking up, looking towards the future, enjoying your present, and reflecting on your past. Right? And I chose those words very carefully. I'm not saying you should live in your past or reflect on your past. I'm not a person who says forget and move on. You can't and you shouldn't because your past is who you are. But the way you look at your past is very important. From my perspective, this is going to be just again my perspective. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not a therapist. I'm not qualified to have these opinions, but I still have them. So I'm just sharing with you whatever thought process is going in my head, and a lot of that is developing as we go. It's not like I know the answers either. I think it's just I've been reflecting on those for the last few days, and since we were going to go on live, might as well talk about what's on my head.
Well, I was a little scared. He texted me his topic for today. I said, "What happened to you over the past couple of days?"
I usually don't text her the topic. Go like we'll play it by ear, but this has been troubling me because I'm like I need to think about it more because I've never had a chance to reflect on it at that deep level, and this is what a 3 hour car ride would do to you, which is perfect.
So I have a question for you. It's a well documented fact, and I just want to have a play with this because I know that we don't know all the answers. It's a well documented fact that women hold 85% of the autoimmune diseases in the world. I'm a part of that population. And somatics are a big deal when we think about our past and we think about our body and the integration of our body. What's your opinion on how the body is playing into the tiredness? And how has your body played into your tiredness in the
Yeah,
past?
it's a very interesting question. I'll give you a perspective, and I told you before the call, I'm actually going into a 4 week retreat in India, and for those of you who know my past, this is not surprising.
But that'll be so hot.
It would be hot. It would be hot, and there's no air condition where I'm going. There's going to be mosquitoes. There's going to be rain, but regardless, and there's no. I was telling Brooke that most of us. Actually, I wasn't telling you that. I was thinking about it. The reason I'm doing this in July, so you probably won't hear much from me in the month of July or August, is because I'm going to be going to India for 4 weeks for basically just reconnecting with me, right? Because I can't offer anything to the world. Forget about the world. I can't offer anything to me if I am not connected with me, right? So to your question about what role does body play, I think the body is a store. I believe I have no scientific fact. I have no qualification to even have that opinion, but I do, is our body stores everything, either at the gross level or at the subtle level, right? So a lot of the emotions are getting, like they say, at least in Indian culture, they say liver stores all the anger, right? So if you think about it, how come they come to that conclusion? It's liver is the source of cleaning the toxicity, and anger and regret are one of the biggest toxic emotions that everyone has. And I'm not free from it. I hope I do at some point, but I'm not. I still get angry. I still get irritated. But now I have a flip. Like I'm not taxing anybody else. I'm actually taxing my liver. So I think, come to the full circle to your question, I believe that if you're living in your past that has some toxicity involved or some sort of a victim mentality involved, there's only two ways to deal with it. One is you can continue living in it and just resent to the fact, just retire to the fact that this is how my life is going to be. Or you can say that I didn't have any control in the past for whatever reason happened, but I can learn from that past and move into the present and future in a much more productive manner. So that switch has to happen. But again, just like the fact that we can bring a horse to the pond, to the well, but we can't force a horse to drink the water, right? Same's true in these things. These conversations are great intellectually, but then how do you actually implement it? And for me, again, I thought that this is a time where this 1 month is the only time where my wife is going to be at home. So I'm like, this is a perfect time for me actually disconnect.
So she can be on hair duty.
She could be on the care duty, and I could disconnect for a month and just focus on me. And there's definitely Ayurvedic treatments involved. There's stuff that's happening there, but we're not allowed to read books. We're not allowed to talk to anybody. I mean, talk is fine, but not socializing. You're not going to create a social circle. It's basically physical and mental rest. There's no TV. There's no internet. I think there is internet. If somebody were to reach out to me, I'm sure we can figure it out. But they're discouraging that, right? Which is a point that all of us are on all the time. So while we're thinking that our life is hard, it's actually our thought process, our uninterrupted mental activity that's tiring us down. It's either the chase of the money, chase of success, chase of acceptance, chase of identity, whatever you're
worth
chasing.
Is a huge one.
So what was that?
Chase of worth is a huge one.
Chase of self-worth, right? A lot of these things, and life is what it is for everyone, right? Even I remember somebody told me once, a janitor's life is as stressful as a CEO. Right? In their own terms. Like their stresses are different. I'm not saying the stresses are same. So the stress is not getting caused because of the job. Right? You would have said the CEO's job would be less stressful because he's making like he or she is making a lot of money, and somebody who's doing a menial job is not really that paid that well, so his stress would be much more higher. But it's not true. Right? So what is causing the stress? But more importantly, I don't think I want to answer that question, what's causing the stress? Because whatever is causing the stress is causing the stress. Who am I to judge anybody's stress? But how do we deal with it? How do we respond to it? Is what probably we can talk about, because that is important. We may not be able to remove the stress, but how do you respond to it? And that's a question of what do you want to go do forward? So I'll give you the context of this conversation. And if you're listening, one of the friend that I was speaking with, I'm keeping it anonymous, so don't worry about it. The conversation was about starting a business. Right? I was like, why don't you just buy the business? And for those of you who have listened to this for a while, I'm on a spree of buying multiple businesses right now. That's really where my head is at. And the more I think about it, I think a lot of people should do that because it's not that hard. It requires some level of thought process. It doesn't require a crazy amount of money, but you got to buy the right business. It's easy, but that doesn't mean it's simple. So you have to be careful on that. So, anyways, we're talking. She's like, "I just want to have a relaxed life now." I'm like, "Why? Why do you think?" So I didn't ask her why do you want to relax. More, I was like, "Why do you think business is hard?"
Mhm.
Then we started talking about it. We had a conversation of how their parents had a business, they lost a lot of money. I'm like, so what you told me so far is you've never tried a business. And you're telling me business is hard. How do you know? Maybe your parents or maybe your friends didn't know how to run a business. Maybe they didn't. I'm not saying they did or they didn't. I have no idea who they are. I've never talked to them. But how do you know business is hard? It's because they're relating businesses have to be on. I'm like, I know individuals who work for 3 hours a quarter and run a $15-20 million business. So is it possible? It is. Is it easy? No, it's not. Right? But can you structure your business in a way that can run without you? Some people have done it. Maybe not everybody.
No, and your easy and your hard is relative. Some things are easy for
Yeah,
others that are incredibly hard for others. Knowing when you're struggling and you need a complementary person is key. That is key
it's
to business.
important. It's very important, right? Kind of like they were saying, no, I had quite a lot of thought process. I need to look at things. I'm like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong in that. She's like, I can't run a business because I need to know everything. I'm like, again, how do you know? You're making an assumption that you need to know everything before you run the business. Or if you need to know everything, you can be a good business person.
Right. And to the
Okay.
point, business is a self-betterment tool. It's a self-development tool. It will be your
100%.
mirror, right? It's the same as a marriage. Your business is your mirror.
Correct. I tell my girls, I was talking about golf game the other day. Like, you got to play golf. They're like, why? I'm like, I don't play golf, but you need to play golf not because it's a sport that I believe can lead you to connections, but it's more, that's probably one of the very few games where it's all you.
Mhm.
You can't blame
And the
anybody.
success or the failure is on you.
It's all on you. Well, the wind was flowing that direction, but you should have paid attention to the wind. Or something else was happening. Well, why didn't you account for it? Right? Versus saying, oh, basketball or volleyball, somebody didn't pass me the ball. Okay, that's fine. You can say that. You can say that in
Or,
that game.
tennis, my partner made this
Yeah,
mistake,
right. Or
XYZ.
that person didn't serve the way I wanted to. It's just there's a lot of things to blame some other individual. In this case, there is no individual. And business is the exact same way. Business is an individual sport, but played in teams, right? It's a very important. You are playing your best so that everyone gets elevated, but you're not
Mhm.
competing with somebody else. You're competing with you, and you as a business owner, you are the only reason a business would fail or succeed. Not because of market, not because of your employees, not because of your partners. It's just you
Or economy. Let's
or
bring that word.
economy, right? It can't. Businesses don't fail because businesses fail. Most businesses fail because of the founder. The founder didn't put attention to improve themselves. They had preconceived notion. Like we were talking about the conversation, this long drive conversation. Like you should be able to challenge every single thought that you encounter. She's like, it's going to be tiring. I'm like, we didn't say it's tiring or not tiring. But if you're as opposed to what? As opposed to accepting everyone else's truth, right? If you're saying your life has been hard, well, you're not the only one whose life has been hard, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like non-emotional way of looking at it. Yes, do you want a pat on the back? We can give you a pat on the back, but what's the next step from there? That doesn't mean you give up the rest of your life, right? And 40, 50 is a different age, but I'm starting to see 30-year-olds doing that, right?
Hmm.
That's
I've
even
seen
a
younger.
harder, younger. I have a more problem with that mindset about a victim mindset. My life's been hard. I can't do it. I can't, right? And like we were having a conversation, you're doing this for yourself. Why don't you just buy a business? I say as if buying a business is a walk in the park. It's not. So don't. It's that my process is that way. So I'm talking that way, but it took me a while to get there as well. So don't
Yeah,
don't
it
take
takes
it
you time and do what makes you comfortable.
correct. So don't just go jump and buy the first business you find. Talk to somebody if you have never bought one. But we were having a conversation. Why don't you do that? She's like, I can't do this. Okay, why don't you partner? I can't partner. Why don't you do this? I don't have the money. Why don't you finance it? I don't. I'm like, so what you're saying, if you think about it in all these patterns, you're fixated that you don't want to do a business. Now you're finding excuses to not start a business. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. That's what you need to reflect on.
Right.
As in, what is so wrong in me starting the business? Because I'm going to work hard as an employee. I'm going to. You have to. If somebody's paying you a single dollar, they expect you to work for that single dollar. So if you're going to
Mhm.
work hard anyways, why not create something that you're going to be proud of? And the work is not that
Absolutely.
much harder. It just needs to be more smarter. You need to create more leverage. You need to know how to. You need to understand these principles to make sure you're implementing that. As an employee, you don't necessarily have that much bandwidth to apply leverage because you can't hire an employee at work if you're an employee without approval. But as your founder, if you want to create a leverage and you have the funds, you can replicate you easily, right? Who's
Mhm.
saying you can't?
And I want to bring up an alternate perspective that I think is so important as well is if you've been through something that is traumatic, is troubling, is causing you a lot of problems. I'm a big advocate for, and I did this myself, just taking time to be and sort those times. It took me actually 8 months to sort what I had been through in a way that felt good to me and felt good to
Yeah.
my body. And if that is your case and that's your situation, allot the time to sort those feelings so that they're not following you for the rest of your life while you're trying to up level and you're trying to grow. Because that can be one thing that's just going to slide you backwards. And if
This
you feel
this
like you can't move forward without sorting that, do what you can do to sort that as much as you can before you step into the next iteration so that you're integrated and ready.
completely. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. That
Mhm.
because the way the life is right now for me, things have slowed
Mhm.
down, and I was initially fighting that slowdown. Right, that well, I need to do so many things. I don't have the time, and all that stuff. But then, really, what I started to think about is I started reflecting on some of the leaders, Steve Jobs and Gandhi, and some of these really, really my role models. When I started looking at them, at least in the business and success terms, not I don't think Steve Jobs' family life is what I want to consider him for my role model, but as an impact provider, somebody who had a huge impact on society, I do want to look at him as a role model. He had to take several times. He had to take a step back, right?
Mhm.
He had to hear no's. He had to go live in India ashram for a few months to get some clarity, right? So sometimes, to your point, sometimes taking that time to reflect on you and heal. And the
Mhm.
heal is I think it's a very abused word right now,
It is a beauty.
right? So you got to figure out what that means for you. Healing is spiritual healing. I think this is just a word you keep hearing a lot
Mhm.
recently. I think it's more recent occurrence of the word "I'm a healer." Well, what does that
Mhm.
mean for you as a receiver of the healing? What does that mean to you? So again, you can figure out what that means for you is, but taking that time away is going to push you, give you the space to progress forward. If you don't
Mhm.
take that time away, because we were struggling in finding this 2 months now out of our life where my wife's going for 4 weeks and she's coming back, then I'm going for 4 weeks, and then I'm coming back in that time frame, like the impact on the girls because they haven't really had both the parents together for an extended duration of time. But the reason why we came to the conclusion we need to do this is because if we're not happy, if we're not in a place where we are content with where our life is going, forget about monetarily, how can you raise a healthy child? You cannot. It's impossible, right? If we don't take care of our health, how can we ensure that we'll live long enough to be there for them when they need us, right?
Right?
So a lot of that things were like, you know what, we can do a short term thinking that we're not there and the guilt of not being with the kids and all that stuff and the summer vacation, they're sitting at home. They didn't ask to travel. They're just asking for a good house where they're happy, right? And that cannot be created until the parents or a single, for those who are single parent, until that parent or guardian figure is content within themselves, which is also true for business.
It
Business
is
is a
absolutely true.
child. Business is a child. Business needs you, right?
Mhm.
At some point, you want the business to outpace your capabilities where it doesn't need you, just like a child. What is the success of a parent if your child doesn't need you? That's success for a parent. You've raised an individual that does not need you anymore. I think I used to look at it incorrectly that, well, if my child doesn't need me, what am I going to do in my life, right? And a friend of mine who pays a lot of attention in parenting, he's in Virginia, Raman, if you're listening to you, this is for you, buddy. He and I are having conversations. He's like, what is a success for him? A successful parent is where the child doesn't need them. They're still connected with them, but they've raised them enough that day to day, they're not needing them. The decision-making power, their resilience skill, all of that is beyond what they could have imagined. That's a perfect parent, right? Now, it's ideal. It's different. People are going to be in different scales, which is important. But if you translate that to business, it's the exact same thing. Would you ever say, my life's been very hard, I don't want to cook food for my child? You won't say it. You would
No.
not say it because you know it's the right thing. Your child needs you.
Yep.
Right? Then why do we not take that and move it to the different other aspects of our life? Why do we in one area we're victim mentality and the other area we're saying, well, we have to. Well, if you have to or you want to, then why don't you take that same spirit and apply in other areas of your life? Right? I'm looking at it very, very objectively in a very logical way. I'm not bringing emotions into it because it's important for me. I'm clearing my head with the same thought process right now. So if I'm offending somebody, that's not the intent. It's really the conversation of you need to ask yourself these questions. You need to challenge yourself with these things, and only then you will come to a clarity. And after that, if you come to me or anybody else and say, I don't want to do this because, not because my life's hard. That's a cop out. I want all of us to be strong enough to say, I don't want to do this because I hate running a business. Honest answer.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You're hating
Or
it.
it can be a number of things. I don't want to have children because I don't want to have a dog because, all
Right.
of that's relevant. You can use these in your personal life too.
You can. Like we're having a conversation. My younger one has now started to say that. I keep telling them, I hate generalization. Don't say, I want to do this because everyone else does that. I'm like, don't say
Yeah.
that. Don't come to me with that. Then I started saying that.
That's a young girl thing though. And their
Yeah.
defense. I'm going to defend them.
I think it's also adults. It's
Yeah.
also adults. It's not just the young people. I think it's the adults hearing that, well, I don't want to do this because no one at my age does it. Well, that is it's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in that statement, but it's a very limiting statement.
It is.
Because you're shaping how everyone else is. What if everyone else is mad around you? What if you're not surrounded by the right people? You don't know. Right? So I slipped the other day and I said something in a very general time. He's like, Papa, you're generalizing now. I don't like general statements. Be specific. I'm like, oh my God, perfect. You're right.
Oh, great.
I need to do that. So I think when people are, again, coming back to the theme of our conversation
Don't you love
today,
it when your daughters are too smart?
I think they keep you honest. The kids
Yes, they
keep
do.
you honest, right? But in a way that's more constructive.
It is.
Including me, some adults don't know how to talk to other adults. I'm putting myself in the same category. Again, I'm not perfect. So I think this is where, to come full circle with the conversation, really it's more around what can we do differently? How can we look at our life differently so we're not the victim of our past, right? We can't change past. You may have, at the time the past was being created, at that moment you may have had the control to change it. You may, or not. I don't know, right? But today you can't change the past. Your past is past. But all of us are letting it affect our future. That's unacceptable, right? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that. But I think the thought process needs to be, if we strive for that, we'll end up in a better place. So if you're looking at your life with a victim mentality where I had something happen, my parents didn't do this to me, society sucked, I got bullied, all of that has happened to me. So don't, you're not the only one, right? We can talk to other people. They've gone through iterations of that, permutations, combinations of all of this, right? But Are you looking for recognition? Are you looking for someone to come and say, yes, Saket, your life sucks. I agree with you. If that's what you're looking for, come to me. I'll say that. I will say that to you. If that's all it takes, that's an easy tick, right? You can find people in your community and say, I just want you to say, my life sucked, so I can move on. Just do it, right? It may be artificial, but do it. It's okay.
And give yourself what you need. If you need that time to get over that, that's a big thing too. Not everybody can get over stuff quickly. So you have to do what makes sense for you.
Yeah, kind of like I told you guys, probably Money and You conference that I went to, I cried like a baby for one day. For the entire day, I cried.
Yeah.
Right? I needed that space provided me. I don't think they triggered anything, but that space provided me the peace and the environment which something was released. I have no idea what released. I mean, I think I have an idea what got released. It's too private to share here, but something got released. But if I wasn't looking to release something, it would not have been released anyways. I acknowledged that something's bothering me. I didn't have the right words to express it, but that environment took it out of me.
Right.
So to your point, if you're not looking to heal, if you're living in the bubble, my life sucks. If you're living in that bubble, and instead of asking the question, how can I improve my future? Instead of living in my past. I'm not saying again that may take years to heal. It may take decades to heal. That's not the point. The point is you're on the path to healing when you're saying your past is holding you back.
And when you're not asking the question, why did this happen to me? Because that really was hard for me. I considered myself, we're going to get vain here. I had done everything right.
Yeah.
And yet this had still happened to me. And I was experiencing a lot of negative side effects from it. And I have so much compassion for that because I didn't deserve it. And so many other people don't deserve the things that they go through as well. You make a bad romantic relationship choice, whatever it is. When you are able to really dig in and stop asking why this happened to me, I think that's when I found healing, right? And I had to dig into that question because it wasn't easy for me.
I think it's important. It's very important. Let's talk for a little bit more on that. I know we're running out of time here, but if you read the book that I co-authored with a lot of other authors, syndicated authors, Think Big, my shift, so I got, for those of you who don't know my story, I got laid off in 2017. I went through major depression. Not because I knew I couldn't find the job, it was because, well, I went to the best school in India. I went to Columbia for my MBA. I went to work for all the Fortune 500 companies.
You had done everything right, essentially.
Everything right. How can that happen to me, right? So I was asking the question for the first few weeks or months, why is it happening to me? Victim mentality. One morning I woke up, and I can't distinctly remember why. It probably didn't happen overnight. I'm sure there were events. Why would it not have happened to me? Why not me? Instead of why me, shifted the question, why not me? And Brooke, I can tell you the shift of perspective just lifted my spirit because I'm like, what's the lesson here, right?
Yeah.
Why not? Why would it not happen to someone like me? Who am I to say that that I've lived my life perfect? Who knows if I lived perfectly or not? Just because I went to Columbia, just went to IIT, just because I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, maybe the path was all wrong, right? Then why not just shifted everything in me? And then, of course, we're here because of that question in 2017. It's because I evolved. I believe, when I say evolved, that's a pretty strong term, but I learned a lot. I grew a lot in those 4 or 5 years that nothing in my life would have enabled me to grow. So I could reflect on and I could have been depressed, losing my identity for another 7 months, 8 months, a year, and saying that, well, what's the point in working because someone's going to lay me off again anyways? I could have done all of that. And these were all the thoughts going through my mind. Rather saying, I will never let that happen again, period. I'm going to create a life where nobody can fire me again. Done.
And that's important.
That's important.
It's so important.
That's where I've built a life now. 2020, from that time to 2024, the focus is on what can I do to take control of the finances.
Especially if things are out of your control. In my case, the person that was, really a problem with me, it was completely out of my control. It was to do with
Yeah,
my height, posture, and body measurements, right? And so when something is out of your control and there is a very unfair situation on a lot of different levels, how do you, come back from that? I think is such a big thing. And you do have to acknowledge the unfairness while moving through, here's what I can do to protect myself in the future. Because I think that balm of
completely.
protection is so important to me.
You have to feel safe, right? In any environment, you
Correct.
have to feel safe physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the other
Mhm.
dimensions that we can talk about. You have to feel safe.
You do.
But
You
just
do.
because you were not safe in the past doesn't mean you can't create that safety today.
And
I
from
think
that
that's what we're
safety, you'll
saying.
be able to build that business, right? But you got to
Correct.
get that base foundation of safety.
You have to have that. You have to feel safe. You have to feel secure. That's not what I'm saying is that most people's mental model becomes, I can never be safe. Because
Hmm.
remember that happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 months ago, 5 months ago? Pick a time. Remember what that happened? How can I now be safe going forward?
Right.
That's the model we're asking for you to challenge. Just because something happened in past, and it's unfortunate for a lot of things that happen to people, very unfortunate, does not mean you can ruin your future because of that. And
Hmm.
that shift only you can make. I mean,
Yeah.
there are help that, I mean, you can talk to a therapist, you can talk to a friend. Don't stay in that bubble that nothing can improve.
Yeah.
Instead of ask the question, how can I improve? You'll at least find a better answer. Now you still may not, you still may come to after years of searching, nothing's gonna change. And that's okay. But at least you tried, right?
Correct.
That when someone like Saket comes in your life, it's like, why are you saying you can't do that? What have you tried? Like I've tried 20,000 things. Nothing works. Okay, that's fair. Now you have data, right? Now that doesn't mean you did all 20,000 things right. You did 20,000 things does not mean they were right, right? So I'm going to say that to you as well. But at least you tried. You have data to say, I'm not in my head. I've actually tried a lot of things. Just doesn't work. Now we can have a
Hmm.
conversation. Okay, did you try this? Did you try it this way? Did you try it that way? Again, through a friend, through a therapist, through a coach, through a mentor. It's important to move out of it. Victim mentality is a great mentality if you're looking for sympathy,
Hmm.
right? It's great. If you want to be in that bubble, great. But for those of you listening to this show, I'm hoping you're looking to get more out of life. If you're looking for
Hmm.
that, try to ask the question, well, enough of my victim mentality. How can I become a victor? Right?
Hmm.
How can I take control of it now? And ask these questions. So it was an interesting. I'm glad that I called that person when I called them because they triggered a lot of thoughts in my head
Yeah.
where I was able to process a few things, and this conversation helps. I don't have all the answers like always, but this is just a start of the conversation.
Right. And you just really want to be a sounding board for people who want to talk this sort of stuff through. So I know you want to pop your link in there.
I do want to pop. I completely forget. I'm so bad at these things. I'm glad you're reminding me that.
It's good I have a semi-photographic memory.
Yeah, good because I'm like I don't even know why we do this anymore, but
Yeah.
this is the
So
reason why we
pop
want
that
to.
link down there. And he loves to just have a play with this sort of stuff. As you can see, he's super passionate about it. So wherever you're going through or whatever, kind of iteration or questions getting you stuck, he'll have a play with you.
Please do, please do. I promise you, you will leave that conversation with a lot more questions than you came with.
Hmm.
I can
And some
promise you
answers
that.
too.
Answers, I would say I don't give answers, but I'll give you questions that if you search the answers to those questions, you'll get a lot of clarity.
Hmm.
Because I don't have the answers. I never do. I don't have my
Hmm.
answers. Who am I to give you answers to you? Right? But I can tell you one of my superpower is to ask really, really, really provocative questions,
Hmm.
and it's going to shake you because I
That's
shake
scary
myself
because we
every
have
time
some of
with a
the same
question.
superpowers.
Right? So that's really my strength, and I'm hoping because if you don't ask the right question, you're not going to get the right answer.
Mm-mm.
Most of us, I have lived my life asking the wrong questions. So my invitation to you is to talk to somebody who's not going to just pat your back saying, yes, you're right, your life sucks. You'll find thousands of people in your life to do that. You're not talking to Saket for that. You're talking to Saket if you're ready to say, my life sucked, past tense. I want to move forward.
Correct.
Right? Now we can figure out, again, I'm not a therapist, so I can't tell you that I'm going to be able to fix any of your problems. It's more, well, let's ask the right question. You may be asking the right question, but let's see if we can have a path forward to get some clarity. That's going to be the only thing I can offer is that. I don't offer answers. I never claim to. I can help you find some direction, but not the answers. You're going to find your own answers.
Process.
And have fun in the process, right? That's important. That's important. So, but thank you again, Brooke. Love these conversations. Thank you for.
I think we had a good one today. Don't you think so?
I love these conversations. Like money and finance is all good. It's needed. This is important. This is what most people don't talk about. Right? Mm-hmm. Most people want to talk about invest in my deals, talk about this, talk about that, how to make more money, how to be successful, how to buy a plane, how to save taxes. You'll find tons of that. And I can talk to you. That is something I can give you an answer for, because there's only one answer for most of these things. I can easily give you an answer for that. But that is not why you're coming to this show. That's not the reason. That's just a side benefit. That's just a side benefit. This is where we ask important questions to ourselves.
And the side benefit is it's a byproduct of doing the hard work of letting go of stuff.
It's very important. It's
really important.
Well, thank you again, Brooke, and thank you again for those who are listening it live and who are those who are going to listen to this offline. Hopefully this added some value in your life. Hopefully it got you your thought process going. And take the offer. Again, if you don't want to talk to me, that's perfectly fine. Talk to somebody who's going to give you help with asking the right questions, right? But if it happens to me, feel free to schedule a call.
Woohoo! I had fun today.
All right. Well, thank you again, Brooke.